Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Keri, Doan, founder of Waiting on West, and has spent over 15 years supporting growth of service-based businesses from early stage side hustles to established brands. And her work focuses on visibility, messaging, and simple systems that turn attention into consistent client growth. So we'll learn from her, for how consistent growth is not more content, and that there is something else. Why visibility without a system leads to burnout? What people are avoiding that would actually move their business forward, and how to build a sustainable, aligned business even when life isn't predictable. Welcome to the show, Keri.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people, a lot of businesses across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about sustainable business growth and marketing, and why no much more content is the answer, but something else. So we'll talk about all that. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I started my business almost on accident years and years ago, supporting a business that was in their very early stages and trying to figure out their own path. And then through that process, my spouse was in the military and we were a lot different locations, and I had to create a business for myself that would survive all of those moves every time we had to relocate, as well as the unpredictable life of having to support your kids, doing, all of the after school activities, dinners, running the household, as well as running my business. And it really put into perspective what's important, but also, as much as our time is important, we also have to make money as a business owner. And so to not lose sight of that while we value our time as well. And so it started to really create these systems that I got to see put into action. And then I would bring on other businesses through my journey and through my years, different locations, to help them put those things into play as well on their end. And so as we would kind of create these systems, we realized that every person that is running a business, their system is different from every single other person because their life is different and their business is different. And so it really creates this opportunity for each person to have a custom system that creates stability and sustainable growth in their business over time. And so it kind of created this business just through life experiences for me. And so I'm really grateful that even though those hard times when the kids are very little and things like that, you really get to learn so much. So I'm so grateful for all of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in your own experience, how did you know that all the so-called right things are not working, and that there is something else needs to be done? Because when you are doing almost textbook things, people are saying, experts are saying, then you are confident that the results will keep on coming. But it will take some time. But those right things never are proven wrong, but are also not proven right also. How did it you realize it? How should people realize it in their business, especially when everything looks so right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is such a tricky balance for people to find because, like you said, a lot of these things are textbook, they're perfectly made, and they're supposed to work. But what I would be finding through these conversations is that business owners would be saying in any stage of their business, I'm doing this method, but I'm really doing a terrible job at it, or I need to do better, right? Their language behind the conversation was negative, right? It was like, I am failing, I am not doing enough. But once I do better, it will work more. And so it's not necessarily that every, different textbook piece of advice or system out there in the world is wrong, but it's really about us being able to step back and understand which pieces of that system work perfectly and which pieces maybe we just don't need to use. Not everything is going to fit everyone perfectly. And so sometimes the conversation in yourself is understanding, I'm going to take what pieces of this work for me and not say things like I'm failing, I'm not doing enough, I'm not working hard enough, because that's very rarely ever true. Most business owners are working as hard as they possibly can. And so removing that kind of guilt that they're having and understanding that just maybe not every single piece of it is going to work.
Absolutely. So coming to the content part, you say that more content isn't the answer. Now people think, especially in almost so many aspects of our lives nowadays, you got to be seen, write some content, put content here, put content like this at this place, and then everything will be built around that. Show up consistently, and that also means more content. So help us understand that, when more content is what people see, how people understand you, how people feel your product or services, then why is it that more content is not the answer but something else is? Help us understand from how do you then show up consistently? What's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we already know that more content means more chances to be seen. And so that's a fact that we can't get away from. But what we do often see is that creators, business owners are creating a high volume of content that isn't effective. And then they're essentially leading themselves to burnout, right? Because they're not hitting some of the markers that you need to hit in your content to make it be seen more. And so it's kind of this vicious cycle of them kind of throwing out content that isn't that great. It's not effective in the sense that it's not doing all of the things that your content needs to do, but they are doing it every day, but then they get burnt out. And then typically what they do is they dip down and they won't post for 2-3 weeks, something like that. And then they'll go back up, which immediately the algorithm doesn't know what to do with you when you kind of disappear and reappear and post a lot and then hide, right? And so it's more about us finding, again, a sustainable system of what can we do to make sure that you show up consistently, not disappearing, but also hitting all of those content markers, like having a strong caption, having a strong hook on your screen, right? Using all of those content tricks that make sure that your content is seen, but that it's easy for you to implement and not kind of fall out of when it gets too difficult or when you get burnt out. So again, those burnout cycles really are what kind of keep us from showing up consistently and having a strong message. And so sometimes what's actually sustainable for someone isn't posting 5 times a day. It's posting 3 times a week, but consistently, not stopping. The algorithm understands what to do with you. It shows you to more people because it knows what you're doing, and you're using all of those tips and tricks that are supposed to get us seen by more people on all of the different platforms.
Right. So what should, nowadays most of the business, whether even if you're offline business, but you need to be seen online in equal measure. And at the same time, many businesses are just online themselves, just there and nowhere else. And for them, it means, much more visibility in their own way to their target audience. How should they look at, and especially the offline also have to be seen online, how should they look at marketing in today's time when social media also seems to be in a very strong transition phase? People do not have the same amount of time, and especially time for nonsense, if I may use the word, like it was say for perhaps 6 months or a year back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's really important because a lot of people think that they can just put all their weight into one social media platform and just show up there as often as possible. And then there can be some disappointment, right? When you're not seeing the clients that you want and things like that. And so we talk a lot about spreading your visibility out into multiple places, right? How can we expand on how many places we show up to make sure that your audience is as wide as it needs to be, but also remembering where your ideal client is, right? If your ideal client is on LinkedIn, maybe don't spend time posting on TikTok, right? So really being strategic about where you're showing up, but not just showing up in one place. And that really does go the same for online businesses and in-person businesses, where you're kind of having that visibility. And then the other thing that I really strongly encourage is networking, right? Like things like you and I are doing here today, having opportunities to speak with other people that are running a business. It just kind of keeps that network wide open. That's something that I think gets lost. And it is something that you can do both online. There's tons of online platforms to network in, as well as in person if you have a local community, chamber of commerce or something like that. Having humans understand who you are also helps grow your online presence, right? Because if you have people that you meet in a network, right, you and I are probably going to like each other's posts on Instagram. We're going to engage with other people's content on LinkedIn, right? When you have that engagement in that community, it also helps boost your visibility online in other ways. So it's about not being in just one place, really expanding your visibility to all the places that your ideal client is, and then having that community of people there that are engaging with you, supporting you, and interacting.
Absolutely. What about, the emphasis on social media as well as your own website? How much is it changing? Earlier it was, social media, but then it came down to that you can't trust social media. One fine morning, one fine evening, your platform will throw you out from there, and then it comes down to your owning the emails as well as bringing people to your website. That's the source of truth. How is this working from marketing perspective, Keri?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now what we're seeing is that it's actually really benefiting us when we have a good system in place, because we understand that these platforms could go at any time. We could be kicked off them at any time, or we might just decide that we don't agree with the values that those, people that run those systems are operating in, right? We're seeing that happen a lot lately too, where people don't, align with the values of those who are running those places. And so when we talk about your whole system, we talk about your content and the way you show up and your messaging. And then we talk about how that connects to your website and to your kind of long-term growth in your business, your voice over other platforms. And so we really want there to be a clear path for people to go from your social media, wherever they find you publicly in the world, to your website. And then your website being incredibly clear, because we know how fast people are moving in the world today, how much time they don't have. And so we want to make sure that the first thing that they see is something really clear that calls them to action to engage with you and to be a part of your community on a deeper level. And what we're noticing is that people really want this right now. They really want to actually have a break from the kind of push of content in their brains. And so we're actually seeing people really enjoy a newsletter or a podcast, or even like a voice note. Some people will do like a voice note that they send out to their community, right? Things that are really like coming back to connection and community are showing up really strongly right now. And so while we have that visibility out there in the world, because that's how we kind of find people virtually on the internet, then we make sure that that path is so clear so that they can become a part of your group, right? You're part of people that are supporting you through your email list, through your website, whatever kind of other platforms you have. And then it always ties back to that thing that we always hear people say about owning your email list, right? You really get to have that connection, but it's so much stronger now, especially if you're a growing business, because you get to really capitalize on the idea that people want connection. They want human to human kind of conversation, and they will sit and read a blog or a longer email these days because they enjoy the humanness of it, right? As opposed to a 3-second reel that can be a little bit draining after a while. So it's really cool to see the transition from this kind of fast-paced content world into our communities that we're hosting on our websites, where we've really strategically planned things out and we've made it so that they can engage and be a part of things virtually.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Keri. So, what is a good system for me? How do I evaluate my present system? And also, how do I ensure that this is not overwhelming? A lot of businesses are small businesses, 2%, 3%, 1%. And many a times, even they can, afford to pay something to someone else. But many a times, because they understand their business so well, they want to do it themselves as much as possible, wherever it is possible, because it also takes a lot of time to explain things to others.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a really tricky thing to do for any of us, right? And so I think one of the biggest things that I recommend people to do is to really kind of pull your brain out of your business because we're so in it, right? We understand the direction, we understand where we want our clients to go, we understand kind of who we want to talk to and what our business is. But when we kind of pull ourselves a little bit out of it and we kind of go, if I was brand new, if I had no idea what this business was doing, would I understand the statement on the website? Would I understand what they're doing? Because I think when we get into deep into things, we don't think about the brand new customer that's never heard of us before. Maybe the new customer doesn't know that they need us, right? Maybe they don't know that they need to listen to our podcast or read our blog. They don't know anything yet. So really removing ourselves from the situation, first thing that we do, and look at all the language and make sure that the first thing that they see is so clear. It's such a strong call to action that they understand exactly what they need to do. And then really understanding the path of the journey that you want that person to take in your business. And more often than not, the conversation leads to removing things, right? Us removing things that were not serving the ideal client, not serving the journey that we want them to take, or honestly, just not serving us as business owners because it's so many things on our plate that it's not manageable. And like you said, even if we can afford to pay someone, we don't always want to do that. So having it be so clear right from the get-go, and then so simple for them to get to the end goal that we want them. So if we want them to make that sale, what is the clearest, simplest path? And 9 times out of 10, the path needs to get clearer by removing things, right? We've put obstacles, we've made things unclear. And as soon as we start to remove some of those unhelpful pieces of our website, of our system, it makes it a lighter load for us as the business owner, but also for the clients. We notice that they immediately start to flow in quicker because their path is so clear. They know exactly where they need to go to hit that buy button, to sign on to be your client, to join your email list, whatever it is that we're asking them. And so we really look at step one from them, but from their perspective. And that's something that I think is very easy to forget when we're so deep in our business that means so much to us, right? We stay so focused on how things look from our view. So getting out there is the first thing that I like to do with a client.
Absolutely. And when do you come into the picture? Your company, Waiting on West, when does that come into the picture?
Well, I think that's one of my favorite things is that it really can be anyone. Some of my clients are in their very ages, like just starting out. Maybe they have 0 clients or 1 client, and others are already in their 6-figure, 7-figure stage, and they're looking to simplify things because again, they've got so much going on. They need it to be simpler. And so I get to come in when someone feels like they're just not getting to where they want to be, and they feel typically what they say is that they feel overwhelmed or they feel like they need things to be easier. And then when we get into conversation, we find that they're saying, I need to do more. I'm not doing a good job, right? And so when someone is feeling those things, that's usually when they call me and we get to sit down and go, okay, it's not that you're failing. It's that we need to clear things up and make them simpler for you and your client so that everything can flow smoother for you. So any stage of business, we start working on this. It's really about when someone gets to that point where they go, this is getting to be too much. We need to make it clearer.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn about all this from you, Keri, and I'm sure a lot of businesses across the world would want to connect with you. What's the best way for them to do so?
Thank you. Yeah, so my website is waitingonwest.com, and I can be found on all the social media platforms at waitingonwest.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.